Hey, there he is. What's up? Doing a little exercise there. Hey, what's up, everyone?
Good afternoon. We're
Yeah,
back.
how are you?
So good. I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
That's what we like to
I'm
hear.
really stoked to be seeing you. Really stoked to be doing this movie, The Thing. Classic, and it's a classic paranoid kind of early '80s, kind of shindig, if you will, lack of a better word. Um, yeah, this one's John Carpenter's Thing. Like you said, or where we were talking right before we went on air here.
Pre-show?
Yeah, pre-show, adapted from Who Goes There, which was there was an earlier adaptation on film called The Thing from Another Planet or World. I can't remember. I should have
Oh,
written
from
that
the
one down.
50s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I actually have that one. I own it, and it's pretty. I don't know. I could tell it's pretty. It's pretty. It was pretty progressive for its time, I think. But this one was actually, I didn't really see this one until probably the 90s when I got into John Carpenter. I remember seeing um, Big Trouble in Little China. I remember seeing
Okay.
that in the theaters, but I never really kind of connected him with Halloween and all that kind of stuff. Um, because he went from Halloween to The Fog, Escape from New York, which is another favorite, which we should revisit here on this channel, and then The Thing. Where were you when you first saw it?
Look,
How did you come across this movie?
well, it's 1982, so I'm 10, so I'm not seeing it in the theater. I
Uh,
see it in the video store
yeah,
as you walk through that genre where you're seeing, like you mentioned, the Fog and the other kind of scary movies, and there was just a silhouette. The cover was the silhouette.
yeah,
You see
yeah.
the ice in the back, and there's it's backlit. So I don't honestly remember when I first saw this movie. It wasn't one that I gravitated towards.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't have just picked out for myself. I think someone had to show it to me at somebody's house. I honestly don't remember
Yeah. Yeah.
where I was when I originally saw it, but the first time you see it, you're not ready for it.
No. Oh no. And that goes that even carries over to today because
Mm-hmm.
I watch a lot of reactors on YouTube, and they're just not ready for it. And they're also taken by the, why are they shooting at that dog, the poor dog?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Then the opening
Yeah,
scene,
and
like you say, the opening scene, you once you about the end of Act One, whenever that is, it's kind of a slow burn, but at the same time, it's really fast. I don't know. That's like so much.
well, no, I think that's, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It is a slow burn, and I think that contributes to the eeriness of it, because part of it is that that this is a scary movie,
Mhm.
and so that slowness, this is, oh god, you're always kind of on edge, and gets you on edge, but it also establishes a lot of the characters, and so it builds up, and especially with the dog creeping around at the beginning, it's just yeah, I think that's why I think it succeeds, because a lot of times you get horror movies, and they're horror movies, and then they have a kill in the first 5 minutes or something. I don't know, but this one, the music's bare, not not it's not kind of, it's chilling in its own right, but I mean it's not necessarily the typical um, horror movie music. So I mean, there's nothing to kind of, it just I guess, getting back to your point, it just adds to that slow buildup, and the payoff is
Oh
oh
man,
my
there's
god.
so many payoffs too. I mean, the
Yeah,
opening shot, you see a flying saucer coming
yeah,
towards Earth. And then you see
Right.
the title screen. And then the next thing you see is a helicopter with a sniper outside the window shooting at a dog.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
am I watching? And you're concerned,
Yeah.
and you're a little confused by how the helicopter comes after the dog. You're like, the dog's running through thick snow. Why are we making all these crazy passes at it? And it's really confusing. And as you go back and rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it, and you have to rewatch it. I mean, you can rewatch this thing 100 times and see 100 different movies.
Yeah.
It's so good in just everything just the amount of detail he puts into this movie. But just with that opening scene where this guy is a terrible shot. He can't shoot this dog. The dog's running through 4 feet of snow. It is a moving target, but not really. He should be able to get it. But when we find out why this is happening, it makes a lot more sense. Oh, okay. They're not trying to get anywhere close to this dog because it's not a dog.
Right. And after you watch it and you discover many of these things that you're talking about, when the dog comes up to the American camp and starts licking the dude's face.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh God. Yeah. And from there, for me anyways, it goes, it starts the whole thinking process of like, okay, so when did so-and-so get infected? When did this get infected? And for people that have not seen it, which I don't think there's many, but this movie's about an alien creature that is formless and shapeless, and how one of the characters say it in the movie, it could have been on 1,000 worlds and copied 1,000 creatures.
It could have been doing this for forever.
Yeah.
It's kind of an immortal enemy. And is it killable? Do you know that you can even kill this thing? How long has it been buried under the ice? Mac, I think, or one of the scientists, look at when they, we're going to jump around a lot because there's no way.
Right.
You can watch a million different YouTube breakdowns of this. This is the Gonna See My Friends podcast, so we're going to just be spastic when it comes to. There's no way to cover all this in an hour, but just let's just jump around. Screw it.
Let's do it.
When the Norwegian, turns out they're Norwegian camp. And they land the helicopter, and this dog comes running up into the American camp, Outpost 31. And the dog's terrified, and then the Norwegian is shooting at it. The Americans shoot the Norwegian because he's now shooting it at them.
Yeah.
And he yells something in Norwegian, and it's not subtitled. You don't know what he's yelling at them, and what it turns out he's yelling, as it turns out, if you go back and you do find out what it is that he's saying. He's saying, it's not a dog. It looks like a dog. It's not really a dog. Get away from it. All this kind of stuff. He's trying to warn them away from this dog.
Yeah.
And he shoots the dog. The dog's kind of, oh. And then they kill the Norwegian guy. And then the dog, all of a sudden, the demeanor of the dog changes. This dog actor is amazing, because then he turns around and he comes up and he starts cuddling with Clark, who is the dog handler of their own dogs. They have their own kennel at Outpost 31 for whenever they need to go out and have, we never see him go dog sledding, but apparently it's assumed that that's probably why they have all these dogs. Right, these are like sled dogs. Right. They're half wolf and half something else. And when we find out that the thing it will take on the form of its victims, will assimilate them into, and will blend in. So at that point, when the dog comes up and starts licking on Clark, as you watch it for the 50th time, you're thinking, maybe this is where Clark has been assimilated into. Mm-hmm. Is now Clark infected by this? I mean, the timeline of who gets infected and when is wild, dude. And like I said, you can watch it next time you watch it with Clark being infected first, as opposed to say Norris or Fuchs or
Windows. Yeah. Well,
Windows.
Windows never gets. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that Clark never gets infected, and that's what kind of takes this whole thing of, okay, well, he's licking his face, which for me, I was always like, oh God. But then you realize, what does it take to get infected?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have, the whole conspiracy theory of how Wilford Brimley's character gets, and I didn't write down their character names.
Dr. Blair.
Blair.
Wilford Brimley, for the first time and only time you ever see him without a mustache, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was a relative unknown, I guess,
Yeah.
when they cast him in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know. I thought, he's one of those actors that are born, they're born, they look 40.
No, totally. Totally.
But that's, you start to wonder how this creature, its intellect, or it's how it navigates through this, because when it overtakes people, you see a couple of instances of it trying to kind of assimilate all these people. It's mind blowing, because I think at the time, the critics hated it. The critics didn't like it, and they called actually John Carpenter the pornographer of violence. They just didn't get it,
right?
And unfortunately, it didn't do well at the box office. But I mean, watching this movie, it's just it's the ultimate like who done it, but it's not really like a murder mystery, but it's more of it's just crazy. It's creepy. Like you said, it's all kind of in this cold place where it kind of imprisons them into these camps. Man, it's crazy.
It's literally who goes there.
Yeah.
Who can you trust?
Yeah.
There's 12 guys in the station, right? And this took me like the 40th time to kind of realize, maybe not 40, but you know what I mean, to realize there's 12 guys, 12 angry men on this plane. And it reminded me so much of 12 Angry Men with Frank. Not Frank. Henry Fonda, who plays juror number 8.
Yeah.
Where it's Mac kind of plays that character where he's the one who kind of breaks it down for everybody. Once they figure out, they go back and they go to the Norwegian camp. They see that it's a smoked out hovel of a ruin, and they've already gone through all this, and they were trying to warn the Americans that they dug this thing up. They dug this. They're whatever they were experimenting on. It's unclear what these 2 Antarctic stations are actually doing.
Yeah,
never explained.
What they're researching.
They're researching, but they're all drinking. They're all it's that's the early '80s, and but Mac is the helicopter pilot. He's obviously it's Kurt Russell, who's in every John Carpenter movie. You listed them all off. You were like, he was in Big Trouble in Little China, and then he was in
Escape from New York.
Escape from New York, and I'm going, these are all Kurt Russell movies, aren't they? Like they had a connection. But he's like,
well, they also did a. Oh, go ahead.
No, please. He also did what?
Oh, well, they also did that Elvis movie in like 78 or 79.
The Elvis
ABC.
movie.
Yeah, they did an Elvis movie. Kurt Russell played Elvis, and let's see, it was made for TV movie.
Oh, then I probably didn't see it. I was going to say,
I didn't see it either.
Did he do Overboard as well? Because that was, I think, the first Kurt Russell movie that I saw.
Overboard.
So your thoughts on you brought it up.
Okay.
How do you get infected? Do you have to be killed in order to be infected, or can you be infected and then how many things are there? Your thoughts?
Well, my thing, first of all, when I was watching it, I watched it a couple months ago. This is one of those movies where you just kind of, I need something to watch. Oh, I'll throw this on. I watched it a couple months ago. I would say probably in July. It was one of the heat waves that we had. I just wanted
Okay.
to stay indoors. So I didn't realize that it splits in two. So the scene where when the dog kennel where it introduces itself to the dogs,
Right.
which is oh man, that scene
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
for any that's the first time you see it, and it's not just hello, here I am. It's oh my god, it's just a brutal scene. But I didn't know that it split in two in that, and I was reading some articles, and then some reactors that I had watched were saying, yeah, it splits in two, and I look at it, and it either runs out when he kicks the door to close it, when Clark kicks the door to close it, or when it
Goes through the
busts up.
ceiling.
Yeah, and because I was always thought, oh, it's escaping, but really, I thought it was just kind of doing like a pull up, just hanging there, because that's when Childs uses the flamethrower, and
Right.
and it. But I didn't know that it was hanging from the. I thought it was just hanging from the ceiling.
It looks
I didn't
like
know that part of it went up.
So what I think once you see it splitting into different parts.
Yeah.
I and maybe it was just recently when I realized, oh, if it can split into two, then it can split into four, and if it can split into four, then it can split into eight, and then so it gets torched by Childs, but you see it crawling up into the attic. What I think is it splits in two there, and then part of it goes away.
Yeah.
So that we see that part of it fall into the floor and burn up, and it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's clearly still here. So or it has already infected others. So what I think happens with the infection is, and I'm only basing this on the way John Carpenter shot it. Yeah. John Carpenter did a lot of close-ups and a lot of focusing on inanimate objects. The J&B bottle that Matt is drinking from. It's a DNA kind of swap, and once you got guys sharing the bottle of J&B, where Mac's drinking the J&B bottle when the helicopter comes in and all that, right? And then what's his name? Bennings gets shot. He gets shot in the leg. And then he gets handed the J&B bottle, and then he starts to drink the whiskey in order to help with the pain. Any of those moments where guys are sharing the bottle, sharing the joint, you see Childs is laying out on the bed, and there's one of the I forget what's his name, Palmer. Palmer was wearing the headphones. Palmer is lighting up a joint, and he hands the joint to Childs. They're not. I don't think they're infected at this point, but he's showing us these things for a reason. He's showing us that these guys are all swapping spit in one way or another, and if one of them is infected when this is going on, then the other one is infected too. So the idea that there is one thing is kind of a little misleading. There isn't. It's like who's the thing now? There's multiple guys that are infected at any given time, and there's no way to really tell. As some people have said, oh, it's the light in the eyes. The way he shot it is if there's, if you can see like a glimpse, if you see guys close up with their eyes, you can see the reflection of a light bulb in the background. But then Brooks doesn't have that, right? Or Palmer doesn't have that in that one scene. It's so misleading, and you're as confused as they are in the movie, and it's all on purpose.
Yeah,
he does all on purpose.
Definitely. Yeah, because I think a lot of the ways that I thought that you could get infected, because what's his name, Blair, the dog handler, is that Blair?
No, Blair's Wilford Brimley.
Oh, okay.
They put him in the shack, and they were convinced that he goes nuts and starts destroying everything because he's like, he just all of a sudden
no one's leaving,
snaps, right?
Yeah.
And it's because he realizes that I can't trust anybody. I know I'm not infected, but I don't know that the rest of these guys are. And so he kills the rest of the dogs. Then he shuts down all of the he starts taking the power out and kills the radios, and he's going crazy. He's shooting at them. He's just like he's lost it, right? But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, I think that's I think that's why the that's why I think it split in two, was because I think it got to him when he was out in that shack. Because my thing is, I don't think he was infected until he went out into that shack.
yeah, I'd agree with
Because
that.
you don't see him um because if he was infected, I don't think that he would be destroying everything.
Right.
Until he gets out there and then he starts making that little spaceship or whatever he's making
Yeah.
to kind of take off. He becomes but that's a thing. You assimilate, you get their intelligence, or you get whatever you're taking over, you get their intelligence. So, it has to have some intelligence in order to know, okay, I'm in a strange place. I need to get back. I need to build this thing. Here's my knowledge of physics and astrophysics or whatever it is. But yeah, I don't think that Blair gets infected until he gets out there, which is it's crazy to think about because that's a long time. That's almost the whole movie.
Yeah, he's out there like for over 2 days because there's a time jump. It doesn't tell you, but what Kurt Russell's saying is, in 6 hours it's going to be this, and then they cut to they're all tied up. Everyone else is all tied up, and he's going to try to figure out. He's got him with the flamethrower on him, and he's going to at that point he's got the dynamite, and he's he and Windows are going to start drawing blood and and do this blood experiment. I don't know if the blood experiment is one way to tell. I mean, obviously, when it comes to they're going to touch it with the copper wire, and that one of them explodes out of the it's once it's in the blood, it becomes another. This thing is replicating, and it's doing it at it's exponentially replicating. It's going to take over the world. This thing will eventually infect everybody. It's a kind of different zombie. But what Kurt Russell tells them is it can't kill us all. It needs us. Yeah. Right? He says something to the effect where it's just not going to go on a murderous rampage. Then it's not going to have any. If it's using us for food, it's not going to have any food. And maybe every time it kills something, it gives it more. It can then split again into something else, and it can replicate itself. I think in the replication process, what it's also doing, because we saw that with what's his name, the guy who Bennings. We saw it with Bennings. It infects Bennings and replicates Bennings, and then Bennings has a heart attack because when it replicated Bennings, it also got the heart trouble that Bennings had, and then it had a heart attack, and then of course it had to expose itself because it needed a new host. Oh my God, it's so crazy. And while Bennings is infected, Palmer's also infected. There's so many more things out there, but it's very the one song that's in the movie. Stevie Wonder's Superstition was not lost on me.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think at the end when it shows itself to Kurt Russell, and right before he blows it up, you see all the things that it has replicated.
Yes.
Is that a dinosaur? The main dinosaur? Because you see like Blair and
you see the dog, and you see Blair, and you see all the things that become. That's a great question. I don't know. Has it been here? Has it been on some other planet where there were dinosaurs on that planet? Because the options are endless.
Right. Because
that's a great question, man. Like a lizard thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, bah.
Yeah, it's got huge teeth. You're like, what is
I thought it was like a T-Rex. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's wow. Okay,
it's dinosaurs.
I hadn't thought about that. That's really, ooh, that's even scarier, man. This thing's ageless, right?
Yeah, I mean it's frozen. It crashes, before obviously either it crashes in the ice or it crashes before the whole ice age thing, and Yeah, and then it probably wreaked havoc. And then when the dinosaurs died out, it probably died out, and then or it went back into its ship, and then the
Just like
ship got
hibernated or
frozen.
something, right?
Yeah, just so many things. Um, but yeah, that's that. I mean, there's just so many to think about the possibilities of where it came from and the intelligence that this thing carries. But also what Kurt Russell was saying, or maybe not Kurt Russell, but Blair was saying at the beginning, is that um, I think it was Kurt Russell, but when he was saying that this thing is just, it's like a part of a whole. So every cell is its own little entity. To think about it that way, Jesus, dude. Like, how do you kill that thing? And the thing that I keep beating my head over is that they would put it on fire and then put the fire out.
Right.
Just like carry it around. And I'd be like, no, dude, get rid of it. Jesus Christ, get rid of it.
Yeah.
After you know what's going on, like, and that finally McCready, Kurt Russell's like, we got to get rid of him. That's I was like, yes, thank you, Jesus. Like,
You're all, yeah, duh.
yeah, crazy.
Well, they like. I mean, you gotta appreciate that the flamethrower is a huge character in this movie. I mean,
Yeah.
they're using this thing in every room, and then somehow they don't burn the whole place down because they need this building. It's like it's about to be in 6 hours. It's going to be 100 degrees below, and will freeze to death. And then he realizes that's what it wants.
Right.
Because it's used to the cold, but if we heat it up, it doesn't like that. That's why. I mean, this thing can fly a ship through space. This is a highly intelligent creature, and it's replicating people and becoming the people where they can pass themselves off as the person that they've been stuck with on this base for the however many months, and you don't know who's who. How intelligent is this creature? It's the most advanced life form that we've ever seen.
Well, I think credit that to Rob Bottin, who was the legendary special effects dude.
Oh my God.
There's
shocking practical special effects in this are, I mean, how anybody went the other way with it. I mean, and I think he was really young too when he started on this. He was in his early 20s.
Yeah, I think he was like 23. Yeah.
And he's like, can we do this? Don't know. About to find out. I mean, the things that you can do when you don't know that you can't do them are amazing. Right. And he was just like, we're just going to do it.
Well, I mean, the dude burned himself out on this picture. He was working 7 days a week. He was working 16-hour days. And he only had a small crew with him. So, but just that one scene where they're trying to save Benning's life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing, they bust out the.
Oh my God. Yeah. The defibrillator paddles.
Yeah, the defibrillator.
You're not ready for that, dude. You're thinking it's Childs because of how much they're spending on Childs. And you're kind of like, Childs, and I forget the actor's name. I think, one of his first films, but he's phenomenal in it. Childs is one of the great characters.
Keith David,
David, thank you. Who is a great comedic actor, as well as he can do it all, right? And you're expecting, because they're spending so much time focused on his face right before the third time they shock him with the paddles, and to see his arms go into the creature and then get bit off, you're like, what? I mean, it's all so shocking the first time, and it's still shocking when I watched it again last night. You're just not ready for any of these, and they're not jump scares. They're straight up, and you're like, oh my God, like Windhurst gets picked up and like eaten from the head, like being held up. You're like, how the hell are they doing this in 1982?
Yeah.
Incredible.
I had the Fangoria magazine back in the early 80s of that. I don't remember reading it or what was in the article. I'm sure it was about Rob Bottin, but the pictures from that, I remember going, I'm never watching this. There's no way I'm ever watching this. because it was
Fair.
that picture of when it gets up on the heating duct and it's hanging there with the guy's face and he's like, "Rah."
Oh, dude.
And that, I mean, just the practical effects in that movie is just unbelievable, man. And I think he retired. He did a few more movies and he ended up retiring from the film industry because he was so passionate about what he did and he loved what he did so much. He just burnt out. I mean, he would just, yeah, I don't know what he's doing now, but he's, I can't remember the last movie he did either, but man, the practical effects on this it was just incredible.
Well, if he was 23 when this was made, then he's in his mid 60s.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he stopped, I think, in the early 2000s. He did like a movie. I can't remember. I would love to. Let me see. I gotta look this up because
he changed the game with this. There's so many other when the Bennings thing is on the slab, and that I think it's the same scene, and then they're like once the arms go in and they get bit off by Doctor Copper's arms get cut off by the big mouth thing in the middle of his chest. Like his arms go into the chest and then it becomes this mouth, that big Tyrannosaurus type mouth, right?
Yeah.
It cuts his arms off and then he's, and they're all freaked out about this. So they light it on fire. But meanwhile, the head is
like, get away from
out
me.
And then drops on the floor and becomes a crab thing and then tries to sneak out the door.
Yeah.
It's about as creepy as, I mean, it's all so well that you're like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Windows
it's just incredible.
Windows looks over at the thing coming out, literally crawling out the door. And meanwhile, Palmer, who we know is
kidding me.
And Palmer says, "You got to be fucking kidding." Palmer is infected by that. He's acting. He is the alien, one of them now. Because now there's a bunch of them, and right. And he doesn't react to the head crawling out the door until he looks at Windows, and then is like he does this. If you watch it again, it's really subtle. But he looks, because the last time I watched it knowing Palmer's one of the early ones that's affected, but he doesn't like explode until an hour later. But the whole time he's the one who sabotages the blood. I think. Enough time for him to go in and sabotage the blood. There's all these different storylines where you're like, well, who could have done that? Who killed the generator? Who blew the fuses out of this? Who, right? Is Blair? Is he infected? He's not infected, but then he becomes infected. I think Palmer goes and infects him because he was going to hang himself. There's news
saw that news,
but then he doesn't. For some reason, they come back 2 days later. He's eating his own out of the can because they realize don't share spoons and forks and eat out of cans and like stay as isolated as you can, but keep your eyes on everybody at the same time. The only way we're going to survive this.
Yeah.
And he's in there and they're like, somehow he knows not to, to eat out of cans and all this. But at the same time, he's built a spaceship in the last in a tunnel that he dug under this.
Yeah.
So at some point he is infected. We don't see him get infected, but
it's off camera.
The idea that you see the blood fall on the floor and then the blood starts rolling away as one. It's almost like the Terminator.
Like it's going back to,
Oh, it's like a hive mind almost, but any of those things creates another thing.
Yeah. So check this out, dude.
Yeah.
So he did... Oh man, he did the thing. He did The Howling, which we were going to do.
Oh yeah, he did that. That's John Carpenter too, isn't it?
No, that's Joe Dante.
Okay.
He did Explorers, Legend, Inner Space, RoboCop.
Oh, he did Inner Space.
Total Recall.
Oh, he did.
He did. He was Fight Club. He did some stuff in Fight Club. Mission Impossible 7, Charlie's Angels, Mr. Deeds, and he did some uncredited stuff on Game of Thrones, just one episode. and
Which
that's it.
one?
But
Which
yeah.
episode?
Oh, which episode? It was season 4, episode 2, "The Lion and the Rose."
Got it.
So I don't know what happens. I don't know
No,
what
I
happens in
know
that
what
one.
happens in that one.
Oh, is that where he gets married to that?
That's
Oh,
where
yeah.
Joffrey dies and chokes out, so that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So
wow, how nerdy was that, dude? I knew which one. I'm like, it's got to be something where it's a face that's melting or something. Yeah, it's that one. Okay, got it.
Well, hey, we got to do when House of Dragons starts up. Are you a big fan of that show?
Absolutely. Read the book.
Yeah.
Read all the books.
We got to do like recaps. We got to do recaps of that when that comes back.
That sounds good. Yeah, we got some stuff that lots of material to cover there.
Yeah. But yeah, he did a lot of stuff, dude. He assisted on the Star Wars holiday special.
No, he did not.
Yeah, he did some uncredited work on King Kong, the one that came out in '76.
Oh God, wow.
He did some uncredited assistant makeup work on A New Hope, Star Wars.
Oh.
Yeah, so he paid his dues, man. And then he was out at 2002, Mr. Deeds. That was his last kind of credited work.
What are your thoughts on Mac is drinking by himself in his cabin? This is the main character is established where he's drinking J&B, and we see a lot of these shots of where you're kind of like, is it just this is the way movies were done at the time, or the establishing shots of we see the J&B, we see him drinking, then we see him at the computer playing chess, the chessboard and the game that's being played, audio where it's like Knight to Rook 3 and all this is not the actual game that's on. I know enough about chess to know that's not the board that they're describing it all, and like so. What are your thoughts on why was that even in this movie, and why did he dump his whiskey into the computer? It's all very strange the first time you watch it. It's very kind of what the hell? Now he can't play chess ever again. He's stuck on this the ice planet of Hoth with nothing else to do. Now he's just going to drink it and not play chess, and he just destroyed the computer. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I always just thought that kind of showed he's kind of a loner, obviously. But it also showed that he is kind of bullish in a way of like he's like a natural leader. So, I mean, during the course of the movie, you kind of see that. Mm-hmm. But that just kind of gives him this attitude of like, well, screw you. I'm going to like that stubbornness, I suppose. So when he's confronted with all this stuff, like the thing, and when Blair's telling him, I don't know, why don't you ask him? He's, I don't know, it just kind of sets up his character as kind of, what's the word? Like strong-minded, strong-head. I don't know, bullheaded. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, I just think it kind of just sets up his character because I think, I don't think he wants to be the leader, but I think just because he's not going to get dragged into something, if he's going to go down, he's going to go down fighting. So, that energy automatically, I think, kind of puts him in charge because he's like, hey, I got this idea when I saw what happened in there. It's kind of like he comes up with the test and yeah, I think that's probably it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just at first I saw when Blair is destroying all the computers in the radio room.
Yeah,
I saw that. What I at first thought was that's going to that's like these guys are kind of anti-technology almost, and I thought maybe that makes more sense when Blair starts destroying this radio room. You're thinking, why wouldn't you want to? You need the radio to call for help, but then if they call for help, then you're just inviting more people to their death,
right?
And it's better off that if we all just die, then this thing will die, and we'll save the planet.
Right. Right.
And so I was like, oh, okay. So they're like destroying all the. Now that you can't go back and use the chess computer, the chess master, because Kurt Russell's already destroyed it. But I thought for his character, then when I rewatched it again yesterday, I really like paid attention to that opening scene where there's not a lot of dialogue. It's just him with his beard and his long hair, and he's don't give a f kind of attitude, and he's not going to take no shit from nobody. But I saw then I thought they're playing chess, which he is playing a chess game himself. He ends up playing chess, and it's him against the monster.
Oh yeah,
which is clearly a higher intelligence than he is.
Yeah.
And so his throwing the whiskey, which the whiskey at the let's just go ahead and jump to the end when it's just him and Childs. He hands Childs the bottle of J&B, which is what he dumped on the computer to destroy the computer. And I thought, there's this, it's him and Childs, and that's the end of the scene. That's the end of the movie. You don't know. Clearly, they're not going to live through this because it's about to be 100 degrees below. Let's just sit here and see what happens, I think is the. But he gives Childs the bottle of whiskey, and he kind of smiles a little bit. And I think some people have said, well, he filled the bottle with gasoline because he was making Molotov cocktails. And now all of a sudden he's got this bottle of J&B again. And if it's full of gas, he doesn't take a sip of it. He puts it up to his lips and then he hands it to Childs. And Childs takes a drink of it, and then and Max smiles. And I'm like,
oh wow.
He put gasoline. He just put gasoline in the. You don't know if Childs is. Are they both infected? Are neither of them infected? Does it even matter? I guess they're both going to die anyway. So I just saw him as if you watch it as if Childs is infected, because I think the characters are convinced Childs was the one that destroyed the generator room.
Yeah.
That he destroys the creature with the J&B bottle. Is how I watched it with, like, it's a callback to that I'm like, maybe that makes that opening scene of him playing chess and destroying the computer, the higher intelligence, if you will.
Yeah.
That he's a effing cheater. And he dumps a full glass of whiskey and the ice cubes down into the machine. And then he once again puts whiskey into the machine, if you will. So
nice. I never thought of that at all.
Or not, but again, next time I watch it, I'm going to see it completely different.
Yeah. Well, that's cool because I had never even thought of that. I always kind of just went with the popular theory, which was they both just die.
Yeah.
And nothing happens. But the interesting thing is that they did a graphic novel as a sequel with McCready, and so wait, Keith David, what's his name again in that? It's
it's Childs.
And so a helicopter comes and rescues Childs and McCready, but what they don't, and they take him to some, another part of that research lab. There's another one in South America, which is right up from Antarctica.
Yeah.
And so they go to this thing in South America and they figure out that Childs was one. So it starts to take over this compound in South America. And it's just, they did a thing. It's on YouTube. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but I found it on YouTube a couple years ago. And it has the comic panels, and it has somebody reading them. And so, because I don't think you could do that. So what they did is they took out all the dialogue from the bubbles, the dialogue bubbles on comics, and then just had someone read them.
Oh, nice.
And they would go to the different panels and act out the whole thing. And I thought it was really interesting too, because I thought that was probably a good way, especially for the 80s. That was a good way of doing a sequel, because the one that they remade in 2010 or whenever it was, that was
I thought that was a prequel.
Yeah, right.
That was told from the eyes of the Norwegian group, that we see the end of their story, And
Yeah.
I thought it was also a remake because it's called The Thing.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know until earlier today, in just finalizing my notes, Amal, is there anything else that I mean? I'm probably not going to come up with any new. I can only tell you my again, that was kind of my breakthrough is watching him like, why are we playing chess and why does he destroy the machine? Of all the things, he's
Right.
literally got nothing else to do besides fly the helicopter when they want, when the weather's good,
Yeah.
and drink.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to go to my shack and get drunk. And I'm like, are we a research team? Like, how much booze did we bring with us on this? You know? I'm like, that sounds cool to me because I'll go to your shack and get drunk with you too. But he just wants to be alone and drunk, and then every once in a while he plays a game of chess. He plays one game of chess. He's got check on the board, and he moves out of winning the game, and then he loses the game. And the only female voice you hear in the entire is there's no female characters. There's one female voice, and it's the computer saying, checkmate, checkmate.
Yeah.
And he's all, hell. And he dumps his whiskey into the little hatch. And you're
Which
like,
is Adrienne Barbeau.
Who?
It's Adrienne Barbeau.
Is it really?
I
didn't know that.
He was married to her during that time.
Before Goldie Hawn?
Yeah.
I don't think he ever married.
She was married to John Carpenter.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Because he was with Goldie Hawn at the time, and they're still together as far as I know. I think they actually got married after 40-some years because the kids were like, well, you guys should probably just go ahead. Right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, but yeah, I think that graphic novel, I think it was a great idea. I think the thing, the prequel is interesting as well because they did probably a lot of the creature work was practical again, and then the execs came in and said this is not scary enough, we're going to go CGI. And that's what really took me out of it, was because I don't know, it just took me out of the movie because it just looked really fake. It didn't look, I mean, it just was kind of, the original, and maybe it adapted, I don't know, but in the original thing, it's much more calculating, it didn't want to be known to other people.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, it just kind of was like, Brr! But then another interesting thing too was that, so the people that did all the practical effects, the company that did it, they took it and they made a movie with all that practical stuff that they made for the thing. And the movie's called The Harbinger, and it's about a boat. It's about a boat that gets caught in the ice somewhere, like in the North Atlantic, and so this thing starts. They bring this thing on board, and it starts to go through the crew. But they use the practical effects of the thing, the prequel, into that movie.
I didn't know that. I'm like, this down.
Yeah, because they spent so much time and money on the practical effects for the prequel. And for the execs just to be like, nah, we're not using it. They're just like, what? They're kidding. So yeah, it was like it was crowdfunded, and it has what's that guy's name from Aliens? The robot from Aliens. It has him. He's in it. Lance Hendrickson.
Bishop.
Yeah, Bishop. It has him in it. And so it's a pretty low budget movie, but it's supposed to be really great. I haven't seen it myself. So.
I'd watch that.
Yeah. So Harbinger.
No, I like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so and it's, I don't know. I mean, this movie has, I think, John Carpenter, it didn't do well at the box office.
No.
Neither did Escape from New York and The Fog, and Halloween was the only one that really kind of broke through for him. But he kind of got depressed, and he kind of was just like, he kind of lost faith in Hollywood and started making lower budget movies. He made Village of the Damned. I've never seen that. It has Christopher Reeve in it, Kirstie Alley. He did Ghost of Mars, I think, in the early 2000s. That was the last one I saw of him. But I really wish he would have kept going. I mean, because I think
I liked Ghosts of Mars. Would that have Samuel L. Jackson in it? No.
no, it had Ice Cube. I
Ice
think was
Cube,
in it.
like Lawrence Fishburne was in that maybe? But Ice Cube.
I don't remember.
Ice Cube
Yeah.
for sure.
But you take directors like him and Joe Dante and Toby Hooper and Wes Craven, and you take all these kind of like masters of horror type of people, directors, and I just think that because a lot of them, most of them, didn't really have a career outside the '80s. They had their following, definitely. Like I'll watch any movie that any of them make.
Sure.
But I think the taste of the '80s, the kind of the kind of the aspect of it, when you have a lot of it floating around.
Hey, write what you know, man. Just write what you know.
Yeah. So this thing comes from space, right?
Go on. I'm listening. Go ahead, space. No, dude, I'm totally
here. Take a bump. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much part of it too. But
yeah.
I think I don't know. I think that they kind of existed in this kind of realm or this time period, and the kind of tastes of that time period, obviously evolves, and you get into the '90s where everything is a little more violent, a little more like on the nose violence, as opposed to this kind of fantastical way of looking at violence with Tarantino and as such. So I think they kind of lost the luster, but I would love, he did Vampires. Remember that with James Woods. Do you remember that one? Did you ever see that one?
No, I don't think I did.
James Woods. He's in these like jeans and this leather jacket, and he's the head of this team of vampire hunters, and goes around like.
Oh dear God!
I think it was like in 2000. It's funny. It's kind of campy, but it's fun. It's a fun watch, and it's one of his last. I think James Woods' roles is
as a lead.
I don't know. Yeah, as lead. So, but I don't know. So, what do you say? Is that it?
I'm just looking. Do you have an order of I mean, yeah. There are people who will break down what order the 12 guys go in. I mean, 10 of them die, and we're left with Mac and Childs. And this people can argue about this till the cows come home, really. But I would say I'm not going to tell the order that I think it is, because it's going to change next time I watch it. And that's that's the brilliance of this movie and the way he did it. And there's so much detail. I don't think that this is almost flawless, in that some people go, oh, well, if you go into that room and then they pan back into that room and like the boots are moved, and you can pan, or you go into this room and the things moved around. And I'm like, I don't think that's a mistake. I think every single thing, he must have obsessed on this. And again, if there's an interview with him where he tells you what is happening, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know. I don't want to read an article where he says, this is what actually happens, because it's different every time. It's so good. And you tell me other movies that are like that. Clue. Yeah. Clue gives you 3 different endings. What is it? Wayne's World gives you 3 different endings, alternate endings. Those are, you have to pick if one of those are real. This, you're totally left. They assume you're an intelligent viewer of the movie. I'm not going to spell it out for you. It's up to you to decide what happens. And we don't get enough of that. It's unsatisfying because then it's up to you to do it. You have to put in some of the work. So for those who haven't seen The Thing, and if the younger generations is listening to this and haven't thought about it, like, this movie was made 15 years before I was born. Good. Go watch it. Don't watch a remake of it. Watch John Carpenter's Thing. It's it's shocking every time you watch it. This practical effects there's so many scenes with just so many different practical effects. You think you've seen it all, and then it's even more shocking later. The big monster at the end when they go into the generator room is absolutely horrifying. I can't say enough good things about it. It's a freaking perfect movie.
Well, I think that encapsulates. Yeah. John Carpenter, because I think all of his movies has its own he has his own style. When you watch a lot of his movies, there's a lot of I don't know, it's just stamped with his style, his own technique. I think Dean Hunley too, his cinematographer that he did a couple of movies with, who did also Back to the Future, his camera guy. I mean, it has the same feel, look, and I think in my closing thoughts, I think that this has, if you put a little more grain into the movie, it looks like a '70s movie.
Oh yeah,
and it has that aesthetic to it. And I think when we talked about comedy in the past, I think this was kind of the before there was a switch. I think with Nightmare on Elm Street, I think was kind of the beginning of this new type of horror where it was just a little more campy, a little more. I don't want to talk about the '80s. A little more campy, and it's just a little more fantastical kind of stories. Where
you
this
mean like
was kind of
gore wise? You mean?
I just mean in the ideas, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe gore wise. Because I think this, like I said, this has like '70s type of feel to it.
It does.
For me, anyways. And it has that, dude, the horror, the gore, the effects. I mean, it goes on. I mean, it evolves in the '80s, but this was kind of, for me, the last kind of frontier of like, I don't know. If you get into Cronenberg, you get into body horror and that kind of thing. But
yeah,
I don't know. For me, this was kind of his own stylings and his own kind of voice. And oh man, I miss seeing John Carpenter movies, man.
Well, body horror we saw in the theater last week, The Substance, and
really,
yeah, I don't know if that's about as it's a lot. Oh boy, it gets this. The Thing reminds me of just how much. I mean, these people are basically exploding. The dogs are being ripped apart, and then they're splitting open, and this thing just starts growing out of them, and it just exponentially gets more and more. And people are the characters. You're like, get the hell out of that room, dude! But they are frozen in fear of this thing because that's like you said.
Yeah.
We've talked about this in one of the past episodes where you'd think you would be easy enough to just turn and run, but when you're that terrified, you can't.
Yeah.
It's like being in a nightmare where you're like, I'm trying to wake myself up, right? And you can't do it. But this is really happening to these characters. So this has got a lot. If you're into that kind of oozy, gooey, and just the long shots of it too, the tracking shots of blood trails and like the green goo, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Oh, just it turns your stomach almost. It's almost too well done.
Creepy. All right, cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time here with me to talk about The Thing.
This is good choice. Great choice.
Good choice. Yeah, good one. I think next week we're going to be doing what, It Follows? Is that what it is?
We're going to do It Follows. Yeah, that's my pick. Talked about it a couple.
That's on Halloween. That's going to be coming out.
We're going to do it on Halloween. Yep.
And maybe I'll express it and try to get it out by the weekend or something after that.
Right on.
But, woo!
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Well, hey, anybody that's watching of our 14 followers, appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. And if you have any suggestions or if you have any opinions about The Thing, go ahead and put them down in the comments and we'll read them and Maybe we'll do like a comment, question and answer type of videos coming up soon. I don't know, something like that. But thanks again, Toby. I'll see you soon.
You too, Steven. Okay, bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.